So I took this out, grabbed the mallet without it applying any heat or anything. I just kind of gave it a quick wrap, just like that, and the crankshaft started coming out. So finish it up here. Let's pull this crankshaft right out. Easier said than done. Alright, there we go. So, ordinarily, if I were to do a bearing replacement, which these back bearings might need to be replaced, I would hope that the rear bearing would come off with the connecting, or the crankshaft. That way you don't have to kind of try and jimmy in there and get these things out. I haven't removed the C-clip here, so I'm not going to tap these bearings out, but what I am going to do is, now that I've got that thing out, I'm going to throw a bunch of oil in there. See if that doesn't kind of liven things up a little bit here. Could be that this bearing just needs a little bit of lubrication. See if I can get any in that front. Might actually need to heat the bearing up a little bit. I don't know if there's some congealed caster in there or not. I'm not sure. This front bearing is the one that feels like it's kind of stiff, actually. I'll probably end up having to take those bearings out. This one's starting to feel really loosened up right now. And there you go. That bearing feels fine now, just from putting a little bit of oil in there. If I can get some oil down into that front one, maybe I can liven it up just the same way. And that's all they need, is just a little exercise, break free whatever little varnish. Some more oil down in there and see if I can get some more oil on that bearing. It's got an open, it's got a shield on the front. Oops, I just poured all the oil out. And it's open in the back. I can see the balls in there. Yeah, I think these bearings are going to be fine, really. I'm not going to even bother taking them out. I'm going to put this thing back together and run it. You know, clean the crankshaft up a little bit. So, I mean, the bearings, look at them. I mean, you can see this one, there's no rust on that. Maybe a little caster goo, but I mean, for the most part, that's in real fine shape. So, I think I may have scored pretty decent engine that I can probably turn around and make a little bit of money on, possibly, or keep for myself. I don't know. Yeah, this all is freeing up pretty nicely. You see how easy that goes in there now. Look at that. Just a little bit of exercise, a little bit of oil in those bearings. You know, ordinarily I would probably use some emery cloth or something on this, but I would certainly soak it in CLR, but it's really in pretty good shape. You know, I'm wiping the oil off of it, but I want to kind of get a better idea of what it looks like. The oil will help clean it a little bit. And that's about as nice a connecting rod, about as nice a crankshaft as you're going to see. I have no idea the age of this engine, but not bad. I mean, there's a little stuff here. I could probably do a little bit to that. Maybe get a little emery cloth. But I mean, for the most part, look at that. That's in pretty nice shape. I'm going to take a couple of minutes here to talk about some of these parts I've got before I start the reassembly of the engine. We'll start with the crankshaft here. I've got them in this bin because I've got them pretty heavily soaked with oil right now. In a previous video, I mentioned that I was considering, hi Chloe, I mentioned that I was considering soaking all the steel parts in CLR, or calcium lime rust remover. Because this engine turned out to be so clean on the inside, I mean, I found a light layer of rust on a lot of these parts, very light layer, but no oil residue whatsoever. So it was weird that it had been run, but really didn't appear to have been run on the inside. So it was just a little light coating of rust. I chose not to do the CLR. In fact, I just kind of cleaned them with oil, wiped them down. Now this, I used a little bit of a 1500 grit emery cloth and kind of dressed up the bearing surfaces a little bit. But other than that, this crankshaft has not been, touched with the CLR or anything else. Let's take that and put that right here. The timing gears, same thing. You might see that there's still a little bit of staining on them, but for the most part, this is what they look like after I just wiped them down. They're pretty clean. I didn't really feel the need that they needed to go in the CLR either. And this timing gear, it was really brown looking, but as you wiped it, you could just feel it was just a really light coating of surface rust. So I was able to just kind of clean that off, wipe it off real good, and then just oil it up. There's no need in really soaking those parts in CLR if they're really that clean. I use that for some really stubborn parts. Let's see, the front bell here. I decided I wasn't going to change the bearings because we're nice and clean. These bearings are in nice shape, you can see. A real nice shape. So I'm not going to do anything with that, but the one thing I did do was there was a little bit of staining here. I just sprayed some of that LA's Totally Awesome cleaner on it, scrubbed that area real good so the bearing looks nice and clean. Then I sprayed it all down with alcohol real good and took it out on the compressor and blew all that alcohol and other residue out there, and then I've got it really soaked up here in oil. So I'm going to go ahead and just this part's going to get ready to be reassembled. The timing case here, the little bearing in there was a little discolored. I cleaned off all the old gasket material that was here. I just used some of that Totally Awesome cleaner, let it soak on there, and then I just kind of used my fingernail and a little razor blade and kind of clean that off. I'll be using some Permatex Motoseal gray gasket maker when I go to put this back together. Swabbed in here. All this stuff is going to be nice and clean. I mean, this thing's going to be basically like a brand new engine. The crankcase also looks almost new. I've cleaned it up a little bit more, took that paper residue off there and here. That internal bearing there, I scrubbed it a little bit, just very lightly with that LA's Totally Awesome cleaner. Then I blew it all out and oiled this all up. So this is pretty much ready to go too. I mean, but if you look at this, this looks like, basically a brand new engine. So I put a little oil on all the bearing surfaces where anything's going to metal to metal contact. So we can, hopefully I'm going to try and maybe just resell this engine. It may end up being so nice I just keep it, I'm not sure, but I want to at least get it nice enough so I can resell it. One of the other videos I was kind of messing around with the piston ring, and one side was completely gummed in and it was stuck in there. I ended up just pulling the whole ring off, and as you can see now, I've got it so it will rotate around and it's free to move. What I had done was I took the ring off and just ran the ring itself through the groove with some oil and just really made sure that there was no dried cast or any contamination in there. So now this ring rotates around there really nicely. So this thing's really good too. This rod here that holds the rocker arms in place, it was a little nasty and kind of tight going in and out, so I used some of that 1500 grit emery cloth, just kind of dress this up a little bit. Now it's all oiled up and ready to go too. The last thing I wanted to show you that's not all lubed up here was the head, and I haven't actually gone through the process of removing the valves yet. I'm still going to do that, at least on one of the valves, just to demonstrate the process. But I was able to get that copper glow plug washer out that was kind of stuck in there. I just got a pick and just got on there, and actually I gave it a little flick and the thing went flying. I heard it hit the table, so I found it. I think we should be good there. It doesn't look like the threads are damaged at all, and you can see there's really no need for me to get in here, but for the sake of an instructional video, I'll probably go ahead and drop one of these valves out, take a look at it, and see how it goes. But that's kind of what I wanted to close up some of the loops here on some of these parts, some of the things I didn't really videotape, and explain the condition of these parts prior to reassembly.